Welcome to Jazz Zone Together, our new online jazz community where we will provide jazz education and classroom resources, interviews with jazz educators, artists, and celebrities, along with valuable teaching tips and repertoire suggestions. Today, we welcome a remarkable educator who has taught for 30 years in the Montgomery County, Maryland schools, an extraordinary trumpet player, and successful composer, Mike Kamuf. Now I'll turn things over to our host, Dick Dunscomb, to conduct the interview with Mike. Dick, please take over.
Thank you, Bob. And Mike, it's so good to have you here today. Welcome.
Great to be here, Dick. Thank you so much. Yeah, great to see you and Bob.
Yeah, it's been a while.
It has been a while.
We'll get into that a little bit later.
Yeah.
We usually try to start out with a background on our guest. And I know that you've had some experience over the years that you'd like to share with us today. So please give us a rundown of your early years and how you came to choose music as your career.
Right. So I grew up in Cleveland, Ohio, in the city, in a neighborhood called Old Brooklyn. My parents were very much, music was a part of our family life. Grew up listening to everything from, a lot of jazz, but mostly jazz, but anything from Louis Armstrong, Roy Eldridge, Dizzy Gillespie, Count Basie, Duke Ellington, Woody Herman, Buddy Rich. My dad was a drummer. And so music was a part of our house. So I caught the music bug pretty early. I didn't start really playing. My godfather lent me my first trumpet when I was around seventh grade. And I started playing, and by ninth grade or so, I was taking private lessons and playing. I went to Catholic school, so I played through the programs there. And that was, I think the experiences that I had up to that point were good and very nurturing with good teachers. And by the time I'd gotten going in high school, I started doing honors groups and everything. My senior year in high school, I met Tony Leonardi, who led the jazz program at Youngstown State University for well over 30 years. And Ohio Music Educators started a new thing that year. They did a regional jazz band, and I auditioned and I worked with him. And he was the first person that I had come across that was beyond just being a great teacher. He was passionate about music and passionate about jazz, as I was passionate about jazz. So that kind of sealed the deal for me that I was going to be a student of his, and that kind of took that experience kind of took me down that path, but to be with him. But I think my parents' record collection, my dad's guidance with what I was listening to, and all the teachers that I had early on really helped shape that. And it was, like I said, I had the music bug, and that was it. I wasn't gonna do anything else. Started my college career with Tony Leonardi, and he was very very encouraging, and my experiences there really were just very much life shaping for me. The guidance I received from both Tony and Asoto Pellegrini, who's the trumpet teacher there, was the trumpet teacher there rather, just gave me they shaped everything. I started out as a performance major, but then Pelly, as we call them, kind of took me under his wing and said, "You don't need a piece of paper that tells you can play your instrument. You can play the trumpet." So then I started. I got a music education degree through YSU, but I also kept playing, and I completed the jazz studies track as well, jazz performance track. So I was in no hurry to get out of there. I spent 6 years there, but I completed 2 curriculums, and that was kind of the driving force behind me going into education. I had great teachers like Tony and Pelly, and my high school band director Wayne Miller, and just they were kind of the driving force for me to become an educator. So that's kind of what led me to the educator path, and then the trumpet path just kind of happened. Writing is a whole other thing. Would you like me to talk about that?
We'll get into that.
Okay.
Absolutely.
Okay.
You know,
Right.
it's interesting you mentioned Tony because he was very instrumental in the development of NAJE, and I worked with him very closely. He was a wonderful person, and that's quite a background, Mike. It really sounds like it's been solid from the very beginning and all the way through.
Yes.
Now, you're at the middle school program in Montgomery County in Maryland,
Hmm.
and you have been very successful and developed a highly recognized program. Let's talk a little bit about your program and share with us about not only how you built it, but how you maintained it through all these years.
Yeah, a good colleague of mine says it's a lot of fun building a program. It's a lot of work to maintain it. Yeah. So when I got hired in Montgomery County in 1992, I was actually an elementary music specialist for 3 years. And the community where my wife and I lived, we were teaching private students. We heard that there was an opening at Baker Middle School, so I interviewed for it, and I've accepted the job, and I've been there. I just finished my 26th year there. Um, and when I took the program over, there was a lot of good things that had happened. The building was actually transitioning from an intermediate school, which was just seventh and eighth grades at the time, to a full middle school. And there had been some problems over the past year before I took the job. So I took the job, and I had to really I had two grade levels basically that were mine, like right away. Um, and I was just teaching band and one section of general music, four band classes and one section of general music. We had a string specialist at the time, and a chorus music teacher, and a general. She also did general music. So kind of took it over, build it up, trying to just encourage the students, and I brought in a lot of people to help me. We had a great music coordinator at the time for our county public schools, Bud Caputo, and Bud did a great job of coming in and helping me, and it was very encouraging to me to get things going. And I developed a program that just kind of held its own, and students really wanted to be in it. Now, the curriculum kind of was, the band and orchestra classes were during the day. The jazz was something that was after, it was like a club kind of thing. It was after school or before school, however you wanted to run it. And we stayed with an after school club. And when I took that program over, it was more like a pep band than anything. When I got there, I was just kind of like shaking my head, like, oh no. And at the time in the 90s, like mid 90s, when I did this, there were the young, like and Bob will understand this, and Dick, you'll understand this too. The print music resources for young jazz ensembles, it was not what it is today, right? So there was some good quality things out there, but it wasn't in as abundance as it is as it currently is. So I had to weed out the rock tunes. Not that there's anything wrong with that, but this was not going to be a group for the basketball games. This was going to be a performing group. So that took me a little while to get that going. It took us a good couple of years, and then I started taking them to different festivals and getting outside of the building and hearing other groups to kind of like, okay, you have to do this, as I did with all my other groups as well. And it took us a long time to get it going, but once we did, it's on a roll. It got on a roll, and we did wonderful with it. And it's been starting in the late 2000s. We started doing with my feeder high school. We started doing a jazz night, and we would start bringing in guests for that. Mike Tamaro brought the Duquesne band down a few times for that, and then we developed a relationship with the Airmen of Note, and they came out, and there's nothing quite like having your middle schoolers open up for the Airmen of Note as a music educator. A little nerve-wracking, but a lot of fun. And the kids, every year that we've done it, it's just been a great success, and the students love it. I think the key for any program like that, to get it going, is giving the students performance opportunities. You can have your spring concerts and your winter concerts and all that, but getting the groups out and playing and getting them to other venues and hearing other ensembles, taking them to festivals. We do the Towson University Festival. Jim McFalls runs a great festival there. Paul Carr runs the Mid-Atlantic Jazz Festival just outside DC here in Rockville. Our students play in an exhibition on that every year. Harry Schnipper, who owns Blues Alley in DC, does a thing called the Big Band Jam where he's aligned with the Smithsonian Institutes, and we participate in that. So any kind of opportunities that I could get for my students, I got them out there, and to get the feedback and to hear other groups and hear what other professionals were saying, and I think that's how my program was successful over the years, and it's gotten to this point.
You're a very savvy educator, and you're a person that others should pay attention to and follow. And of course, that's why we had you here.
Oh, well, thank you.
But in addition to that, you could have been on here just for your trumpet playing, because you've been a fabulous trumpet player over the years.
Well,
and I know that you have several things going on with that. So tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, well, going back a little bit, I did have the opportunity to go out on the road with the Tommy Dorsey Orchestra in the summer of 1990 for a little bit, subbing for a friend of mine, and then stretches with I got to do some runouts with the Woody Herman Band in the 90s through different connections there. Duffy Jackson was actually kind of helped me get with them. So I've had all kinds of wonderful playing opportunities, and my recent project for the last about 12, 13 years now has been my little big band that I have. And it's an 8-piece group, 5 horns, piano, bass, so 3 saxes, trumpet, trombone, piano, bass, drums. And we play we play in the area here in the Washington, D.C., Baltimore area. We have our first gig, and since the epidemic has happened here in late August, and then another one in November, and hopefully a couple other things in this fall as well. And it's kind of it's my stress releaser of sorts. I get that opportunity to play, and I get a chance to write for the group, and I have some wonderful writers in the band as well. Paul White, who's on the staff of the Army Field Band, he writes for the Jazz Ambassadors. He's in the band and contributes. So it's a wonderful group, and that's been that's been the focal point here for me as a player. That's been the main steady thing for the last 12 years or so, I guess. Yeah.
That's a fabulous group too. I've heard them, and they are really terrific.
Yeah.
Now, you mentioned you just back out, now, and most of the schools are beginning to look, toward a new future and maybe a little bit more normality. But 2020 has been a very incredibly demanding year for everybody in education. How in the world were you able to keep your program moving forward with all those challenges?
Well, hopefully it moved forward. So one of the things that I'm fortunate with at my school is that about 8 years or so ago, prior to this, we were down to 2 teachers. So I spoke earlier that we were 3 teachers. We were down to 2 teachers. We expanded this back to 3 teachers, and we hired a master teacher, my wife, who ran an incredibly successful program for 19 years at a neighboring middle school here in Montgomery County, Rocky Hill Middle School in Clarksburg. So she came in and has been in the fold. She's been an absolute just shining star for our program, and her guidance and for me over this last 8 years has been great. But with this last year and a half with the pandemic, or the last several 13, 14 months, we've kind of had to put our heads together and just like, how are we going to do this? Our district, when the pandemic first hit, just had us post lessons. We weren't even doing any kind of direct instruction at first. So that was very bizarre. So we really had to scramble to do that. luckily, smart music was a thing, and they gave us a free subscription, and we kept the kids playing that way. So this past year, we switched to online instruction, direct instruction, but online, and we used smart music as a piece, but we found additional resources online. John McAllister for band directors and orchestra directors has a great website. If you're not familiar with if you're doing any kind of online instruction or any in-person instruction and you're not familiar with John's free stuff, it's amazing. And so we incorporated a lot of his things into it. I modeled a lot. My wife modeled a lot. Our kids that were coming, or sixth graders that were coming from elementary school, some of them were beginners. And we're trying to deal with this online. So we had virtual check-ins for this, so the kids could come and get help. That was kind of put together by the school system. But at first, we made it mandatory for those kids that did not have any kind of regular instruction happening to come in. We also just try to keep the kids engaged with different activities, changing it up, not doing the same thing every day. Kids at this age level need that continuity, but sitting in front of a computer all day and looking at somebody, you have to change it up. You can't just keep doing the same thing over and over again. So we used a variety of different activities, and we let the kids do some choice things. They could pick different pieces and do whatever and study them. And so we gave the kids a little bit of options. We also did do some virtual performances with the students. And that's really tricky to do with young musicians, especially middle schoolers. High schoolers are one thing, I think, is what I'm gathering from having experience of doing this. And it's like, some of these kids aren't used to playing with a metronome in the first place. So you're asking them to do something with a click track, and I'm right. No, you're not right. That's not lining up. So we had to do some fancy footwork with some of the things that we did for that. So I learned some new editing skills along the way too, but it was very, very challenging year. I mean, to say the least. We're scheduled for the fall to go back to regular 5 days a week in-person instruction, and we're looking forward to that. As our kids were coming in this week into the some were in school, some were at home online because we were doing a hybrid. The sixth graders, the rising seventh graders in particular, were just like, they can't wait. They can't wait to be a middle schooler. They can't wait to be in the group that they're in, whether it's orchestra or band or chorus. That was kind of like a resounding thing as we were talking as a department this week, as our teachers, like we're just like, the kids are there too. They want to move on, and they want this to return to normalcy too. So yeah, so I just tried to make sure that we gave varied instructions as much as you could, and give the kids a little bit say so and the projects that we were doing and what we were doing, and a little bit of democracy there. And I do that in my classroom anyway, so it was a natural carryover into online learning. So
congratulations. That is a story that we'll hopefully not need to renew.
No. And the word for the week this week was, we got to the end and it was safe. We
Absolutely.
We made it. Yep.
Absolutely. Okay. So now there's another side of Mike that we're going to talk about, and that's your success as a composer, not only for jazz ensemble, but for concert band and orchestra. Tell us what led you to pursue writing, and how would you suggest other educators follow a path as well?
Well, this all goes back to my dad's record collection again. And he also had a subscription to Downbeat magazine. And I was in about seventh or eighth grade. I just started playing trumpet, and I saw an ad for Kendor Music had a free record. I'm like, oh, free record, I'll get it. So I fill out the thing, and the record comes, and it's got the scores. I had no idea what this was. I'm like, oh my God, Thad Jones. I recognize that from my dad's record collection, right? Bob Brookmeyer, I recognize that from my dad's records. So that was kind of the impetus. And I remember sitting at my dad's stereo with, the music was like, they put a score like on one page on a quarter of a page like this. So I remember sitting there like, like this, studying the score, listening, and trying to interpret what I was hearing, because I didn't have any kind of formal training. So my dad, I think, is kind of responsible for this, and that interest in it, partially responsible for it. I wrote my first jazz chart when I was in 10th grade. I wrote trumpet duets before that. I went to a Catholic school, and we had a mass that happened like on a monthly basis. I wrote for a brass group that played for that. So I had all these experiences early on. And when I got to Youngstown State, Dave Ravello, who teaches at Eastman, my first year was his last year. So we would go get coffee and just talk and exchange records, and he was a great resource. Sam D'Angelo, who also taught at the university, was a great resource for me. So that kind of got me going. And I wasn't very prolific in my younger years, but it was all about learning the craft and the process. And I was fortunately doing it, with good people and getting great feedback. So that's kind of what pushed me along. As far as the publishing industry goes, I can honestly say that the educational music publishing industry, I didn't pursue it; it pursued me. Pete Barenbrag, was with Warner at the time, and Alfred now, and I were, as a matter of fact, I was on a gig with him when he was offered the position. We were on a gig together in Annapolis, and we talked about it. A few years later, he heard one of my arrangements being played by a high school group that I had written an arrangement for. He called me out of the clear blue. He says, "You have anything that's in this kind of grade level?" I'm like, "Yeah." So I sent him some scores, and we started a relationship there. Like I alluded to when we were talking here, Diane Myers at Menchie Music introduced me to Dean Sorensen. That started some things with Chose. And then I met Bob Phillips, who was the string editor on the Bellwin side of Alfred at a music conference. Actually, I met him at an Alfred Authors Dinner at Midwest, but then we were both doing clinics at Ohio MEA a few years ago, and we started talking. He's like, "You're a middle school orchestra director, and you write for us?" I was like, "Yeah." He goes, "Why haven't you written anything for me? Write me something." So I wrote him something. He took it. He liked it, and then a year or so later, I had a concert band commission. I sent the score once it was finished off to George McGaw, who I had only met briefly. That was the only thing I ever really advocated for myself for. I was like, "Hey, George, check this out. So this would be something you'd be interested in?" And I actually do more on the concert band end than I do on the jazz or string orchestra end right now. That's kind of like the last 6-7 years. That's been the bulk of the work has been with the concert band library. So my advice to people that are interested in it: don't sell yourself short, and don't give up. Like if you think you've got something that works, send it along. If you're not certain if it doesn't work, then get feedback from folks like me. I'll help. So it's anytime you can get feedback on how you're doing, whether it's writing or teaching or playing, it's invaluable, right? So if you're looking at you're looking at getting something published, send it out, and don't be receptive to the criticism. Don't turn that criticism away, and build from there, and try to understand what's being asked of you to change in the piece. I've worked at one point. I was working for 3 editors, so that's really hard because one guy wants one thing, one guy wants another thing. So that took a little bit of knowing what to do, and that's also something too. Is if you're a new writer and you're trying to get something out there, this editor might be okay with something, and this editor might not be. So it's kind of like a fine line. You have to know how to interpret, and oftentimes it's a trial and error thing to make sure that you understand what everybody wants. So it's to me, just persevering throughout it, and just trying to get your piece or your arrangement heard. That's the name of the game. Don't give up. I guess is what I'm trying to say. I was very fortunate. I haven't really had to I didn't have to hustle as much as a lot of other people have had to hustle to get things published. I'm very fortunate, and I'm very, very grateful for that. And I'm very lucky that's all transpired for me. So I unfortunately don't have a lot of a lot of things to offer in that other than persevere. Yeah.
Mike, I want to tell you on behalf of music educators, and it's particularly instrumental music educators, we want to clone you. You are a guy who understands, and maybe it's partially because you work with the middle school people so much, how to write for that entity. And there aren't too many out there that are really successful at that. So God bless you. We really love it. Keep bringing it as good as you can and as much as you can. And I also wanted to mention, you mentioned Pete Barenbray. Pete's been very dear, of course, to Bob and I. He published or was the editor on my first book and also the editor on this Jazz Zone project.
Right.
And, he is a really good mentor to so many people, as you are. And so once again, I just want to say thank you for all you've done. And your information that you're sharing today is going to be really absorbed by a lot of educators. And so thank you for that.
Thank you.
Now, there's another side yet to Mike that people probably don't know about, unless maybe they know you personally or have visited your website. And that's the role that you and your family share a love for, and that's some special kind of wildlife. Talk to us about this effort because it's so beautiful.
Oh, thanks. Well, so when our kids, my son is 23 and my daughter's 20. Our son and our daughter. And when they were younger, they wanted a dog and a cat and everything. And like, no. Well, my wife had really bad allergies, and no, we're not doing this. So somewhere along the line, we got a rabbit, and it was from a breeder, and we had it for a few years, and then my daughter wanted to get him a companion. So the other rabbit a companion. So she started looking as like a seventh grader at the time, or no, she was younger than that, I think, maybe fifth grade. She was looking at rescue sites. So long story short, we got involved with rescuing rabbits, and I can't tell you how many we've had. We currently have 4 in the house, right above me, and they are. It's a very worthwhile endeavor to do any kind of rescuing of animals. It really is. I feel like I'm giving back. I feel like I'm giving something. I'm giving these animals a good life. And so we continue to do that. We have a huge garden out back that we try to that they eat twice a day. The people at the grocery store look at me funny when I come up with all this produce. They're like, how's this guy going to eat all this stuff? Like I have to explain almost on a weekly basis at the grocery store what I'm doing. So it's a lot of fun, and they're quite they're a lot of they're quite fun, and they're characters is what I'm trying to say. We are the one that I post a lot of in social media is we have a giant French Lop that's about 14, almost 15 pounds. And he's absolutely hysterical. He's like the gentle giant, just like nothing really rattles him, but you look out when he's hungry kind of thing. It's pretty funny. So, but we've taken in rabbits with cancer before, as they referred to as sanctuary rabbits. We've taken them in and tried to make their last time on, the last months on the earth, like very smooth and comfortable. It's been a real rewarding experience for us to do it, and it is a family affair. Our son and daughter help. My daughter is actually getting she'll finish up with an associate STEM degree here shortly, and she works at a vet, So this is right up her alley. She's good with all the medical things. We and my wife and I help, and it's quite good. So when she moves away, we're going to be in trouble.
Well, this is another aspect of you and your beautiful family, and it shows your heart and your soul that you are multifaceted individual. And there's one other request that I would have before we conclude the interview, and that is, would you play something for us, Mike?
Sure, absolutely. So let me see what I can do here. So I was thinking a lot when you sent me the questions for the interview. I was thinking a lot about my dad, because he's played such a huge role. Unfortunately he passed away about 23 years ago. He's not seen a lot of the success that I've had. I'm sure he was, and his other children have had, but I think about him and my mom often, and one of the things that comes back to me is, again, his record collection and the great trumpet players that I listened to. And I think the one trumpet player that had the most impact on me, besides Louis and Maynard Ferguson at the time, was Clark Terry. And so I'm going to try not to stink up the joint here, playing Just Squeeze Me, Duke Ellington.
Yeah, man, that's great.
Yeah. Band director chops,
All right. Well, Mike, it's been so wonderful to have you with us today. You are truly an inspiration to all of us in the music education field. Thank you for contributing everything that you've done. Keep on making music, man, because you're the best at it.
Oh, well, thank you
Thank
so
you
much.
for being here.
Thank you, Dick. Thank you so much, and thanks for being an inspiration to me too. I appreciate that. You're a beacon in our jazz education community, and it's an honor for me to be here with you. So thank you so much, and to Bob as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Mike. I appreciate all the incredibly valuable input. To our listeners and watchers, viewers, thank you for watching and for being a part of Jazz Zone Together community. We hope you enjoyed the interview and found it of real value.